It is still dark when the hand shakes you awake. Not a voice, a hand. In this house, your name is only spoken when something is wrong. You have perhaps 40 heartbeats to be on your feet before the household stirs. And everything that happens to you today, the bread you may or may not eat, the punishment you may or may not receive, depends on the next few hours. You are 7 years from freedom, if you live that long. This is a single day in the life of a slave in ancient Rome, hour by hour. From the first cold breath to the last, there is no room that belongs to you. You sleep where you fall, in the corridor, on the cold mosaic, near the door so you hear the first knock. A house like this one, in a wealthy quarter of Rome, might hold a dozen slaves or more, and not one of them has a bed of their own. The word for a slave born inside the house, like you, is verna. It is the closest thing to belonging that this world will offer you, and it is not much. Your first task is fire. The great households of Rome wake cold, and it is your hands that must change that, coaxing last night's embers back to life, carrying warmth from room to room before the master's family opens their eyes. You have burned your fingers so many times you no longer flinch. Fire does not care that you are a child. Then, water. You take the clay jars and step out into the street, and here is the first danger of your day. Rome before dawn is not safe. The streets are narrow, unlit, and the night has its own residents. Thieves, drunks, men who would think nothing of a slave child alone in the dark. You walk fast. You keep your eyes down. You have learned that being unseen is a kind of armor. The water comes from a public fountain, fed by an aqueduct that carries it from the hills miles away. One of the engineering marvels of the age, though no one stops to marvel at it. To you it is simply weight. 2 full jars, heavier than they look, carried back through waking streets while the city clears its throat around you. Bakers, cart drivers, the first cries of vendors. Rome is stretching, and you are already hours into your labor. Back inside, you prepare the master's breakfast, the irontaculum, bread, cheese, perhaps figs, perhaps honey. You arrange it carefully because a careless hand is a punished hand. And here is a small cruelty you have stopped noticing. You are surrounded by food you cannot touch. Your own meal, if it comes, will be the hard end of yesterday's bread, eaten standing between tasks. Hunger, for you, is not an event, it is the weather. The master takes his food without looking at you. This is not cruelty, exactly. It is something worse. To him, you are furniture that moves, a tool with a heartbeat. And today the house is tense, because tonight there is a cena, a dinner, and important men are coming. Every slave knows what that means. Today, mistakes will not be forgiven. If something goes wrong tonight, someone will pay. And the lowest always pay first. By mid-morning, the sun is high and the city is a wall of noise. You are sent to the market with the head cook, himself a slave, but a slave with power over you, because here is a truth about Roman slavery that surprises people. There was a ladder, even at the bottom, a skilled cook, a trusted secretary, a tutor. These slaves could hold real authority, could be feared, could even be envied. The man walking ahead of you owns nothing, and yet this morning he owns you. You carry, you fetch, you hold the coins and hand them over when told. The cook is buying for tonight, fish, fowl, wine, and he is nervous, and his nervousness travels downward to you in sharp words and sharper looks. You have learned to read the mood of the men above you the way a sailor reads the sky. Your safety depends on it. But you carry something else too, hidden, always, a few coins of your own. They call it the peculium, a small sum a slave was sometimes allowed to keep. It is not much, but it is the most important thing you own, because in Rome, a slave could sometimes buy his own freedom, coin by coin, year by year. Your master had even named a price. 7 years at the rate you are saving. 7 years if nothing goes wrong. And then something goes wrong. In the rush of preparing for the dinner, a jug slips. Fine ceramic, expensive, gone in a bright crack against the floor. Maybe it was your hand. Maybe it was not. It does not matter. In a Roman household, blame runs downhill, and you are standing at the bottom of the hill. The cook turns. The steward is called. And for one long moment, everything you have saved, the coins, the 7 years, the fragile arithmetic of your freedom, hangs on what happens next. Before we go on, if you have ever wondered whether a slave in Rome could truly buy his way to freedom, then subscribe and stay with me, because that is exactly where this day is heading. The answer is not what most people think. The steward looks at you for a long moment, and then, because there is a dinner tonight, because every hand is needed, he decides, not mercy, arithmetic. The punishment is delayed, not forgiven. You will work tonight. You have survived the hour. In your life, surviving the hour is a victory. You learn to take them, and so, at last, the scene. The guests arrive and recline, and the house glows, and you take your place against the wall, a jug of wine in your hands and instructions to be invisible. You pour when a cup is empty. You vanish when it is full. And you listen, because no one imagines you are listening. This is the strangest power a Roman slave holds. You hear everything. Deals, secrets, politics that could topple men. The Romans spoke freely in front of their slaves the way we speak freely in front of a lamp. To them, you are not a person who could repeat a thing. You are part of the room. And in this way, you come to know more about the powerful men of Rome than they would ever choose to tell. The guests leave near midnight. You clear the cups. You put out the lamps one by one, and the great house sinks back into the dark it woke from. No one thanks you. No one says good night. The day simply ends, the way a tool is set down when the work is done. And then, in your corridor, beneath the stairs, you do the one thing that is entirely yours. You take out the coins. You count them in the candlelight, the peculium. A little heavier than yesterday, a little closer to a number that means everything. 7 years. Maybe. If no more jugs break. If you stay useful. If you stay alive. It is the thinnest kind of hope. And yet, for millions of people in the Roman world, it was the only kind there was, and some of them, remarkably, made it real. Freed slaves walked the streets of Rome in the thousands. Some grew rich. Some owned slaves of their own. The system that crushed you was also, cruelly, one you might one day climb out of. That contradiction, that hope threaded through horror, is the truth of a Roman life that the marble statues never tell you. You blow out the candle. Tomorrow begins in a few hours, with a hand on your shoulder, in the dark. This was one ordinary day, in one ordinary life, in the greatest empire the world had known. But a few weeks from now, and a few days' journey south, in a city called Pompeii, an ordinary morning will become the most famous last day in history. And we will be there, hour by hour, immortal hours. Step into a life that once was. I'll see you in the next one.